Hey everyone, I am super excited to have with us a very, very special guest on the Found the Stories podcast. Today we have the absolute honor to host my dear friend, Ron Rofe. Now, if you have not heard about Ron Rofe, I highly advise you to go to Google right now, put in his name, and see what comes up. Ron is a very special individual. He is the GP of an incredible fund called Rainfall Ventures that is invested in the likes of Webflow, Alma Health, Robinhood, and many, many other companies. Besides that, what I am super excited about today is really to learn who Ron is as an individual person, as a person that really brings a lot of good into this world beyond venture capital. He is a very spiritual person. He is a person that spreads a lot of goodness and kindness. I happen to know a lot about his charity acts. So I'm very excited to learn about his personal values, his principles, and what drives him on a day-to-day basis. So, Ron, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. I am super excited because this was, I think, 2 years in the making. I think I've been asking you constantly for 2 years, hey, Ron, and you're finally here.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. I don't do these type of things often, but it's you and I believe in you, so I wanted to take part, and I think it could be great.
I appreciate it very much.
It all happened organically, and I like when things happen organic instead of planned out. So he was supposed to be here today, and please God, it does good things.
Amen. Thank you. So I want to start this off with, there was a person today that passed away, and I got this in my email this morning. That's why I know about it, and I'm going to read it from my phone. His name was James Earl Jones, and he passed away at the age of 93. It says he was the voice of Mufasa, the Lion King, and of the Darth Vader of Star Wars. And when someone asked him in 2014, when he was in mid 80s then, about his career and his longevity and how he was able to really take his career for so long, he gave this quote. He said, "The secret is never forgetting that you're a journeyman actor and that nothing is your final thing. Nothing is your greatest thing. Nothing is your worst thing. I still consider myself a novice." How do you think that applies to you? Because, we're in this process. You started Rainfall now in 2011. It's going for, we're in 2024. So over a decade. And who's Ron before Rainfall? Who's Ron during the process of Rainfall? And who's Ron going to be after Rainfall? I want the whole wave of things.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Good question. So you're asking in relation to this quote?
Yeah. How do you feel it relates to you?
Got it. It's a good question. I'll start just by saying, well, first, may he rest in peace, and may all of the good deeds that he did grow and help other people along the way. It's a good question. So I'll start just by saying that when Rainfall happened very organically, I was never planning to do venture capital. I never imagined myself an investor. I kind of always grew up moving around a lot. I met a lot of different people. My parents raised me in a way that if you can help people, help no matter what. Don't ask for anything in return. My father was a businessman. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she probably worked 10 times harder than him. But I always remember how charitable she was. And as a kid growing up, we'd stop sometimes under tunnels and intersections where homeless people were, and my mom would pop open the trunk and have clothes for homeless people and food for homeless people. And I remember as a kid, they always remembered my mom's name. And that stuck home to me since I was a kid. My parents always raised me, if you have things at your disposal and resources, always give to others. So my dad was a hardworking businessman, always very charitable. My mom helped people, helped kids with cancer. So I grew up with that mindset of working and giving back. And anytime anyone asked them for help, even if it wasn't monetary or anything like that, just a favor, even if it was something that wasn't easy for them to do, they always did it. And that stuck to me. So that my whole life, whenever someone asked me, a friend or family, or even sometimes strangers asked me for something, if I could do it, I would do it. If it was a little bit of a challenge, I'd still make an effort and see if I can be helpful. And never with anything in return.
Right.
So I stayed in touch with so many people over the years, moving around. I grew up in Florida. I lived in South Africa and Israel. I was in international schools, and these were before the Facebook days and the LinkedIn days. And something about me made me good at staying in touch with people without any plans or anything. And then I went to the Army. I was in the tech unit. I was very lucky to learn about organization and learn about technology. And I was the head of organization, so I met a lot of engineers. So when I didn't know it going into it, but when I left the Army, I met a lot of interesting people. The asset of knowing so many engineers turned out to be very valuable. And then I went to university. When I was in university, friends of mine that I stayed in touch with from high school, they reached out to me and they said, we just raised some friends and family money. We're starting an online game company. Do you want to join? That company is called Plarium. And I said, yeah, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wasn't per se passionate about games, but I loved the guys, Avi and Gabby. And I just jumped on the opportunity, joined them. And the company took some time to get off the ground, but thank God with Avi and Gabby's leadership, it went to big scale, got to 1,400 employees, profitable company, eventually exited. And I, before that, a while before that, after the company was kind of running on its own, I moved to New York. I was thinking what I wanted to do next. I was meeting founders and just kind of exploring. And from time to time, investors would ask me for introductions to companies, and I would do it if I could. And then Yitzhak, who's my partner in Rainfall, he reached out to me, wanted an introduction to Kik Messenger, which was like fast growing. And in Canada, it was like one of the fastest new social networks. It got to 1 million users in 2 weeks, something crazy. He asked me if I could get to him, and I wanted to help Yitzhak. He's a good friend of mine, and we have a good history of helping each other. And I flipped the world around. I called everyone I could before the LinkedIn and Facebook days where you can see degrees of separation. And I got to a friend that his college roommate in Miami University went to high school with this entrepreneur. And then I connected them. For whatever reason, the investment didn't work out. And thank God it didn't, because Kik ended up shutting down. Mm-hmm. And then a few weeks later it was the same thing. Yitzhak wanted to speak to Foursquare when Foursquare was the hottest social network up and coming. And it was the same story. And then, I made all these intros for Yitzhak. And then he said to me, Ron, why don't we start a fund together? And I didn't even really know how venture capital worked, because with Plarium, it was a bootstrapped company other than the friends and family money that Avi and Gabby raised. But it appealed to me because Yitzhak said to me, you're very good with people. You have good relationships. We've been around starting companies, and the business isn't rocket science. We just have to invest in people that care about a problem and are committed to it. Right. And we don't have to have the best solution or the craziest numbers, but if we invest in quality people, it can go a far way. So it appealed to me. I jumped on the opportunity, and thank God now we're doing it a little over 10 years, and we're on our 4th fund. It's been going great. Like you said, we have a few good companies that did really, really well. Some companies shut down, but all along, from the successes and from the failures, we always learn something. And I would say, with the quote that you read, that we're always learning, we're always discovering, we're always meeting new people. And we can't grade Rainfall's success by the milestone exits like Robinhood or Webflow or Alma. We also have learned so much from the failures. And we learned how to become better investors. We learned what to avoid, what to double down on. And what it taught me of just practicality, and then we can get into my personal in early stage investing, is very contrarian. You can't fall in love with the idea. You can't fall in love with the numbers, or not like an idea and not invest, or not like the early numbers and not invest. You really have to focus on who the people are. Right. Yeah. And we pride ourselves by not chasing trends. We pride ourselves by not being in the hot space where everyone is. I think when we started, we were kind of underdogs, and not a lot of funds would share deal flow with us, which was actually to our benefit. The fact that we were new and no one knew us was actually great, because it let us learn all these things by ourselves. And what I learned the most is that the best founders are working on things where investors aren't chasing them. Most likely, and again, there are exceptions, of course, but most likely when we found that founders are in the hot space, like today, AI, and we dabble with AI sometimes if it's a team we know very well. But most founders that are in AI right now are kind of just doing it because they know VCs are there and giving them money and they have a chance to start a company. But where we've seen success the most is when we saw founders that were doing something and they cared about it, even if investors weren't giving them money, or weren't hot on the space. That's where we knew we have founders that are committed to what they're doing. They care about the problem, they care about the industry, and they won't give up, right? And we've seen that. It shows the resilience. And eventually, when we invested in founders like that we just cared about them and they care about the problem, it avoids us having to chase the new trends. And that's how we got early into Robinhood. We weren't looking for fintech. And Robinhood was our first fintech company, and it became a category leader. The same thing with Webflow. We weren't looking for no-code companies. We just fell in love with Vlad and his story, where he worked on it for 3 times and failed on the 4th time. He didn't give up, and we loved that. And then that's why we were early in Webflow, and it became a category leader in the no-code space. The same with Alma. I tracked Harry for a long time, and I just knew he was a very genuine, humble, but ambitious founder that knew a space really well. And I trusted him. And we weren't looking for digital health. We weren't looking for mental health. And we just trusted him. And today, Alma is one of the category leaders in the health sector, in the digital health and mental health sector. At the same time, those are our successes. And we learned a lot that just invest in the people that care about a problem. And then with our failures, we've had a good amount of them. For example, Yik Yak, right? Yik Yak was one of the fastest moving social networks. We were the first investors in there. The numbers were growing like crazy. Got to 2 million daily active users. After we invested, Sequoia invested a huge amount of money. And when that happened, we doubled down on a pro rata. We bought early stage, we bought common stock from the founders and earlier stage investors and went too heavy. But we kind of, instead of seeing like the commitment of the founders and the commitment to the vision, we looked at the numbers, and that ended up being not the best investment for us. Right. And also we learned from that not to follow on other investors. Like, stay true to what we believe in. Just because a new fund comes in and is following on and putting a big check, that doesn't mean that should be our approach. So we learned a lot, but the most we learned is to focus on the people, do what's good for us, and then the rest will follow. But when you chase the trends and everything, then you're kind of late to the game and you're missing out on interesting opportunities. So we continue to learn always. I'll stop right there if you have any questions or anything.
Wow, that's a lot. There's like so many points that we could go into, and my mind is absolutely running. I think there's a lot of things. But I want to ask you a question that like is just constantly popping up in my mind. What do you think it was about your mother that she was so charitable and she was constantly giving? Because, you know, I see clearly how that character trait was passed down to you. You're a very charitable person yourself. And you tell me the story about your mom, like how she would stop the car and have clothes. Like, who has clothes to give out to homeless people constantly? Like, constantly in the car, or everything else she'd done. What was it about her?
I think first, she was born with a special soul. God bless her, and may she be healthy and live to 120 and live a long, meaningful life in good health. I think that, so first, like I said, she was born with a beautiful, special soul. I think she grew up with nothing. She grew up in Romania. Her father passed away when she was very, very young. And she grew up with her mom and her siblings, that her mom had to go work to feed them. Right. And, you know, they grew up with very, very little. And then she did Aliyah to Israel and still lived a very poor life. And my father also lived a very poor life. His father was a police officer. His mother was a hairdresser. And then he kind of did everything he could to make ends meet when we were growing up. But I think for my mom, she has that sympathy of growing up poor and then eventually having resources. And then the moment she had resources and could give to others, I think that touched her in ways that you could never imagine. And I think that she suffered growing up. and growing up without a father, growing up without money, and also growing out without your mom because she had to go out and work and bring food to the home. That's a hard thing to grow up in. And at the same time, you could look at this as like, she had a punished childhood growing up. But you could look at that and you can also see the beauty in it. The moment she had resources, all of a sudden she had meaning in her life, right? And I think that's, everyone goes through a journey, everyone goes through life, and you think the challenges that we go through are punishment. But for her, once our family had money and she could give back, imagine how that uplifted her and how that gave her purpose and meaning. And I think that's kind of, if I look back, that's probably the reason, God put her in that position. So when she could give back and she can feel enlightened by it and continue to do good for people. Because her mitzvot and her giving back is magnetic. She influences so many other people to do charity work and donate. And through her, people donate. And it's a beautiful thing. So I think through her tough childhood, that gave her meaning to help other people.
Wow.
Yeah, thank God. So I think that's where we have it from.
Did you have as a kid, is that what you think gave you a driver as a kid to be very I know you're always driven. You always had this passion, this fire within you. Is that part of it? Was that something that she instilled in you because, she spoke about her childhood and had the struggles that she went through. So she wanted to bring that down into you in your growth?
I don't know. I think my parents always taught me to be good with everyone. Nice. They always taught me to give if you can. They always were hospitable and let people into their homes. So I saw it just growing up. And then I went to the Army. And when I was in the Army, my commander was a very special guy. He was 40 years serving in the IDF, and he's seen everything. And he taught me such great things. One of the first thing he said is, you never know who could do surgery on you tomorrow. So be good with everyone. Mm-hmm. And then he also taught me that he had a quote, if you want the grapes of the forest, you have to be good to the security guard because he's going to let you in and he's going to let you out. And, growing up with parents like that and being around a commander like that for 3 years, it always grounded me. It always taught me to treat people at eye level, to give when you can get when you can. And you never know, I don't do anything for to have strings attached to it, but you never know who can help you tomorrow, who knows someone that knows someone that could help you. And most importantly, we're all human beings. Yeah. And we're lucky with what we have, and we're not, my success is all thankfully from God. And I work hard and I've been in the right places, in the right rooms, and I knew how to leverage those opportunities. But I give all that credit to God. So if I give the credit to God, who am I to not look someone eye to eye? Who am I to, if an opportunity presents itself and I can give something to someone and not do it? I'm just being entrusted with it, is how I view it.
So one of the things I'm hearing is you talked about the concept of being a mensch, and specifically being an uber mensch. VCs in general could have the opposite of a mensch. It's funny, I was recently speaking to somebody and he's like, you have to set.
Wait, I just want to say one other thing. When I started Rainfall, a mentor of mine, I went to him for advice because it was a whole new venture. I never did venture capital. I never invested in money. It was a big responsibility. And I really wanted to do well with it. It was important for me. And he said to me, have meaningful goals. And if you have meaningful goals, you can be successful. Okay. And what's meaningful goals? It's not to just be crazy rich and then afford a crazy lifestyle and charter boats and things like that. No, meaningful goals is when you have the success that God gives you, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to help people? Are you going to do charity? Are you going to be a good role model and show what it's like to do good things with money? That's meaningful goals. And that really stuck to me. So getting into Rainfall or any business that I got involved with since I heard that, I was never so I can be rich and have a lot of money. It was when I'm successful and along the way, what am I going to do with the success? But it's also not just financial, monetary success. It's also the experience I gained to help others, the relationship I gained to connect other people to help others, and also the founders I meet along the way. We've up until now invested in 110 companies and over 230 founders. And I express this thinking to the founders also. that, your success was given to you. Give back with it. That should be the goal, So, sorry,
No, it's totally okay, but you brought up a whole thing there. What were the initial meaningful goals that you created when he told you that, when you started Rainfall?
It was that was also along the way. At the time, I didn't have a lot of money, and I was talking to, someone came to me and told me that in Judaism, you're supposed to give back 10%. Right. It's a long time ago. Whatever you make, you're supposed to give back 10% to charity.
How much money did you have then?
This was early days. I was also having not a lot. Okay. Not a lot. Very little in the bank. More than people thought, that's for sure. And the concept of giving 10% was really difficult because I was trying to make ends meet in New York. I was helping family. I had all these different costs. So giving away 10% of a monthly salary felt like a lot, right? And I spoke to my rabbi. I'm like, listen, I read this concept and someone told me about it. And he said to me, one, it's the first thing it's always the right thing to do to give back. And I knew that. And I felt it was right. That's why I went and asked him. And second, he said, this is when you're really being tested, right? When you have little and you give money, you feel it much more. When you have $100 million and you give 10 million and you're left with 90 million, you don't really feel it, right? But the challenge is when you have little. And then that's when you really appreciate it. And it helps you appreciate money even more. So if you make $10,000 a month, let's say, and $1,000 you're giving away, you feel that. But then when you see that you give that to someone, that $1,000 or $500 to get through the month because they don't have enough food, what it does to them, then it makes you appreciate everything. It gives so much more meaning, right? So I said, when I'm successful along the way and now, I want to be always charitable, always give. From the moment I heard that, I always I created a new bank account. Whatever I made, I put it in that account. And whenever I had the opportunity, I gave to others. And by the way, that rabbi said to me, it's the one thing you can test God with, that if you give, you'll get back. And it's funny, thank God, I'm not saying it in a way to show off, but the amount of money I came with when I moved to New York, thank God these days, that's per donation, it's what I can do, right? And it feels amazing, that's what you can buy watches, you can buy cars, you can buy all these things, but the feeling of giving someone in need or a charity that needs it is a feeling that you just can't take away. It's priceless for me.
So let me get this straight. I mean, I totally adhere by the concept of 10%. I do it also. But have you seen clearly in your life that you've been repaid?
100%. Yeah, definitely.
Really?
Yeah.
You have a story?
I'm telling you, literally, when I came to New York many years ago, I had $10,000 saved, and then I borrowed $10,000 from a friend, and he said to me, "It's like a gift." This is a time when I was really starting my career. I didn't have much on my own. I was 20, 24, 25. And he said to me, pay me back whenever you want this, or it's a gift, whatever you feel. And that was all I had. I moved to New York. I didn't have a plan, right? And then, long story short, the fund came to be. And, I don't want to share numbers, but so far, just my donations over the years have far, far, far exceeded that amount I came in with initially by multiples higher. So I saw it. I came with very little. Thank God I did well with Rainfall and other things we were involved in. And the donation money is much more than I came with. So I've seen it. Thank God. Wow. Yeah.
Were you ever at a point you were debating, should I give donation? Should I not give the donation? My monthly expenses, were you ever at a point that you're...
Yeah, it was. And then that's when I went and I spoke to that rabbi and he said to me all those things. And then I accepted it. Because I think it's on the way up is the biggest way. Why wait to do a good thing? I think if you can do it today, you should do it. And I have a sensitive heart. If I see, ever since I was a kid, my parents always tell this story. We were visiting New York when I was a kid, and it was snowing and there was no food service or anything like that. So my parents said, let's go get some pizza. So I walked with them to get pizza. I was like, I think 8 or 9 years old. And then I was carrying the pizza when walking back to the hotel, and I saw a homeless guy. And the homeless guy said to me, hey, can I get a piece of your pizza? And I looked at my parents and they looked at me and they're like kind of looking, what is he going to do? And I just gave him the whole pizza. And they said, they of course were happy about it. And then we got back another pizza. But I think I always had it ingrained in me to give back. But back to your question, when I started making money and the concept of giving back 10% maaser came up, it was a bit of a challenge at the beginning to get used to, but I still did it. It felt good,
right?
You know?
I think the story you just mentioned is like really a parent's, for a parent, seeing that is really a testament to the character traits that they've instilled inside the child. So then being able to see that, that's incredible. Like you mentioned before, you saw it in your mother and you saw it in you, and you have it, and God willing, one day you'll transfer that to your own kids.
Yeah. But I will say what's beautiful about it, thank God, is at the beginning it was a little challenging, right, the concept of it. But now it's second nature for me. Now it's just like a part of me. Now anything I get, 10% I put in this account, wow, and I'm excited about it, right? And I'll just add that, they say that when you do a good deed, it's a little challenging, but after you do it, it's sweet. Sure. It feels good. And it's the opposite with a sin. Sins sometimes feel really good to do it, and then afterwards you feel really bad. So sometimes going into something, especially good deeds, if it's challenging, you should do it because you'll get so much fulfillment afterwards.
Now, I always say that charity is one of the most selfish things possible in the world. Because when you're giving charity, who feels better afterwards?
It's a good question. Yeah.
You walk away feeling great. You walk away feeling like, not from a boastful place in the sense of like, oh, look at me, I give charity. No, but you walk away feeling like, wow, that felt really good. Like if you're ever in a bad space, what do people say to get out of your mind? If you're ever stuck in your mind, what do? Go do someone else a favor.
100%. And that happens. I get moments where I'm just stressed. And then, of course, I'm human. I'm not an angel. Stress. And then I realize, hold on, I'm making everything about myself. And then the moment I feel that, I say, let me do a good deed for someone. The moment after that, all of a sudden I feel way better. Because I put myself out of the equation and I have purpose. And I think that's what a lot of people fail to see. That our success, everything we do is not for us. It's for me, a greater purpose. It's for meaning. It's to help others. The moment we think about others less than ourselves, everything becomes much more easier, less stressful. And it's a constant reminder. It's not like I have it ingrained in me once and that's it.
Right.
You
mentioned before many different concepts. We spoke about charity. We spoke about what it means to do good deeds. We spoke about what it means to be a mensch. I believe that, and we know that the culture of a company starts from the top. So what your values, how you act, that translates down to everywhere else, right? It doesn't start from anywhere. It's not this top down. How does that represent the ethos of Rainfall, and how does that come out in the interactions that you have with founders?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll say that just start with the premise that everything that happened with Rainfall, sure, we worked hard and we did everything we could do to make it a success. But at the end of the day, it was, I'm not ashamed to say, it was all luck. It's all from God. I really, really believe it, and I see it. First of all, I never planned to be a VC, never planned to start Rainfall, never saw it in my future. I saw other potential things I wanted to do in my career. And it happened very organically, where a close friend of mine and a big investor had a liquidity event and came to me. And every single investment that we made, you go in, you never know with these things. The ones I thought could be the most successful, some became the biggest failures or biggest flops, but we still learned things. Thank God. The ones that, so it makes it invaluable also what we've learned. The ones that we thought would be so-so ended up being the biggest successes. Like Webflow, For example, we were alone in that. Barely anyone had wanted to invest in it. It was in Y Combinator, there were 200 investors in the room. We were the only ones that gave them money pretty much. And then for 5 years, no one gave them money. It was a very lonely investment. But we saw it doing okay and growing month to month in a decent way. Nothing like hockey stick growth like everyone says, but ended up being one of our most successful companies. So that just proves to me how much we knew nothing, but everything came out of luck. And we have very little control over the outcomes of everything we do. And I try and preach that to our founders also.
Okay.
And I think it makes life way less stressful. Because if you think you have control over everything, one little thing going wrong, you can lose your mind, right? Mm-hmm. But when I tell founders, God has given you a lot of resources, a lot of good skills, and you can just do your best and the rest is out of your control, it's something they like to hear. When I tell them on Shabbat, I take a day off, and if they're Jewish or not Jewish, I recommend they also take a day off and just are with their family and friends and just disconnect from work, and then the rest will work itself out. It's something they enjoy to hear. Mm-hmm. It's refreshing to them. Because we live in a world that everyone thinks they have control about the outcomes, and they work around the clock, and then they lose enjoyment of life, right? So on that front, I tell that to founders, and I can only see it from my luck and and thank God everything that's happened, that everything is out of our control. We have no control. Tomorrow will bring it all. So why try and think so much about it? And I share that with founders so they're less stressful and know that whatever happens with their companies, if it ends up being successful or not, it's out of their control. They just have to make the best efforts and mean well. And then I also tell them on the charity part, that's very, very important. You're not going to have any fulfillment with just having a lot of money in the bank. If you don't use that money to give back, you're not going to feel purpose in life. You're not going to feel meaning. It's just going to be like, I know very, very successful people that aren't charitable, and they think that if they make $10 million, they'll be happy, and then they make $100 million, and then they'd be happy, and then they're not happy, so they maybe go even more and become billionaires, and they're still unhappy. Right. But I've seen people with much less, and they have the mindset of giving back, and they live on a high because they have meaning, they have purpose. So that's why I don't share all my donations and all my charity work, but I want some people to know it. And I share that with founders as well. And I want the people in the Rainfall team to know that as well. And a lot of our investors are in that mindset also, and I learned from them on it.
Did you always believe the luck component? Like you mentioned the concept of luck, but you took it to a whole nother level. Right? So it is luck, right? We do believe in luck. And there's obviously the famous saying, man plans and God laughs. Mm-hmm. But you took luck in the sense of you have to have, the way I understood it, was you're only in the input business and the outputs are not up to you. You have no control over the outputs.
Yeah, you only have control of what you do with the outputs.
Right.
That you do have control over.
That you have control over. Yeah. But otherwise, the whole entire thing is that you basically, from my understanding, the way I got it was like you have to do everything you possibly can, mm-hmm. right? Put your best effort. But after that, I have no control.
Yeah.
Did you always believe that?
Did I always believe it? I always believed it, but I'm not going to lie and say that I was never stressed or worried. But now looking back, if I could tell my younger Ron, then I would say, chill out. You have no control. Don't even stress. Have a fun night. Go do something with a good friend and just relax. Tomorrow, you have no control over it. But I had moments of stress. I still do. But looking back, everything did work out of my control. There weren't things I could have planned to do or say that would have affected it. You put in the input, you do your best efforts. You're responsible. You don't just do things on a whim and say God's going to take care of it. But we did our best, and then that's all you can ask for.
What was the mindset shift?
The mindset shift, I saw it in practice. After a while, when you see the results come in, then you understand that so much is out of our control, you know?
Like, was it a pivotal moment in your life that you were going through a difficult time and you're like, okay, I can't, like, that's it, I'm letting it go? Let go, let God?
That's a good question. You know, there was a point where my mom was very sick, and she had breast cancer, and then thank God she survived it. And then shortly after, she had trouble breathing. And then she went to the hospital, and they saw growth in her lungs. And well, before they saw growth in her lungs, they thought she had maybe bronchitis or something. They gave her antibiotics, and then it worsened. And they came and did a scan and saw she had a growth in her lungs. And then they saw it was some disease. They gave her medication. Saw it wasn't, not only it didn't go away, it grew, and there was another growth. So then they did a biopsy. They couldn't find out what it was. And for about 3-4 months, the doctors were trying to figure out what it was, and my mom's condition was just getting worse. She was at home, could barely breathe. She was connected to an oxygen tank. It was very, very stressful for us. And it was my sister's birthday, and I was with her and her first daughter. And I was at a park with them, and I asked her what she wanted for her birthday. She said, I don't want anything. I just want that God finds out what mom has so that we can find the solution. And then literally 10 minutes later, we got a call from the hospital in America. We sent it to a clinic, and they came back and found out from the biopsy what it was. It was just this rare disease that's like 1 in a million chance to get and spreads from organ to organ. But that moment they found out what it was. 2 months later, my mom was back to normal. Thank God. Wow. That's just like one story, putting away business for a second, of how, we have no control in anything, and sometimes we get chosen, if things happen to us, if it's business or with health or family and things like that, and we can always make our best efforts, but at the end of the day, the outcome and the solution isn't going to come from us, I think.
Why do you think you were given such success?
I think that, the saying like, whatever doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. I think that's an interesting saying, but I think that, anything you go through is God just trying to bring you closer to him, I think. I think God doesn't look to punish us. I think God always looks to make our lives better. And that's part of making our lives better is having a relationship with God, is knowing that things aren't out of control, is him knowing that we want us to grow in good ways and have meaning in our lives. And that if we can see that, any challenge we go through will bring us a better relationship with God. Because if it's a challenge we can't go through, then we wouldn't be receiving it. And every challenge I've gone through, thank God I came out a new person with more character. It humbled me even more. And any challenge I went through, I always gave it. I learned even more to give back as a result of it.
Right. Wow. Has there been a recent challenge you feel comfortable talking about that you came out of the other end?
That's a good question. Let me think. Well, let's come back to it. Let me think on that.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. It's funny. As we're getting more into this, like I've known you for quite some time now, and our mutual good friend Joe put us together.
Joe Teplo,
the one and only Joe Teplo. And we could speak about, we both know Joe's an amazing person. We could speak about him for a very long time. And God willing, one day we'll do an episode with him also. But, your persona that you give off is a persona of confidence. And you have that.
Thank God.
And thank God. This is something that I think people that come interact with you will be like, wow, Ron Rofe. And when I'm hearing your story now, hearing your development from beginning to end, it's just incredible, absolutely incredible and inspiring.
Thank you.
To see like the person that you've become right now. Like I almost wish I knew you as a child to see like your real development, but it's so incredible to see that growth from, the story you mentioned of your mom, how the things that she taught you, to how everything started together with, you're coming to New York, having no money, and then eventually starting Rainfall, and to seeing all the good stuff that you're doing right now. It's incredible. And I think that relates a lot to how you deal with founders. Because when I was doing research for this podcast, I spoke to a few of your portfolio companies, and each one of them told me that what really made you, specifically Ron and also Rainfall, different was that like personal touch that you gave to individual founders. I know a few stories. I'm sure hopefully you'll be able to share them, whichever ones you feel comfortable with. But I know, for example, the story of Webflow, for example. You flew down to California for a day to go and sit and talk with Vlad for him to take you more money. And the way how you talk about the story, the way he talks about the story, was a very personal touch he came down there for, because he really cared about him. And you shared publicly an email where you wrote to him afterwards, and they could just see the heartfelt approach into it. And the same thing I know with another mutual friend of ours, that you sat him down, who was afraid to take money, venture capital money, and he sat down with you and you really told him this is for the benefit. Like, I wasn't coming out of a greedy place because, hey, I want to grab some piece of your company. No, it was like, I really believe in you as an individual person. And I think that connects so well with your personal development. How someone really believed in you, how everything else about your life, but your personal growth. Wow.
Thank God. Thank God. I like to, the approach of money is for life versus life is for money has always been something that I kind of have in my mind from time to time. And I think that we live in this world where career is everything, right? And for what? Right? If you don't have purpose, then it doesn't matter how much money you make or how successful your career is or what title you have or how famous you are or how rich you are. It means nothing, right? And I don't know what it is about me. It's God-given, but I've never met someone and never felt comfortable with them, because I always knew at the end of the day, they're humans. Everyone's human. We all breathe the same air. We all brush our teeth in the morning. We all drink the same water. It's like everyone is human, no matter the success that they're given, right? Or the success they think they achieved on their own.
Right.
We're all humans. And I'm not saying, God forbid, I don't want to bash people, but some VCs look at founders as like, this is my opportunity to make money. But I don't see it that way. It's an opportunity for me to be a partner with someone, a friend with someone. You spend so many years working on these companies, and it's not just you invest and a month later you get a check back. No, I see these people that care about their businesses, and I want to be a part of that and support. And I look at them at the human level, that if we can have a friendship and then do meaningful things together, that to me is a success. Right. And I never look at them like, if I work with this person, I'll be crazy rich as a result of it. It's all humans at the end of the day. And I don't think we meet people just for one specific thing of making money, right? We meet people to learn, to rub off on each other, to give each other purpose, to help each other. And that's what makes an enriching journey. That's what makes it meaningful. If it was anything other than that, it would just feel stale and meaningless and wouldn't give fulfillment in any way, I think.
How do you get fulfillment?
I get fulfillment when I have good relationships with founders, and we can have heart-to-hearts, and we can get a beer or get a drink or get a meal together and enjoy each other and talk about life and talk about our struggles and talk about our good things. And if I know that I inspired a founder to do something good or work less so he could be with his family and still believe in his company that it can be successful, that gives me fulfillment. When I give to charity, it gives me fulfillment. If it's to a family in need or a young kid with cancer or a charity that I know is doing good things, that gives me the most fulfillment, I think.
Wow. You mentioned character quite a few times. I think, and from my understanding, it looks like you definitely, not looks like, from my understanding, you take character to a whole other level. So when a founder is coming to you for an investment, how do you assess for character? Because character seems to you, seems like everything more than other stuff.
Humility is very important for me.
Okay.
And knowing that they're doing things for the right reasons.
Okay.
And they're doing it because they really care about it, care about the problem, or care about the industry, or care about the customer that's going to use it. I try and really kind of get a sense of why they're doing it. And when they tell me they're doing it because when I ask what your vision is, and if they all of a sudden tell me I want to be $1 billion company or go IPO and exit, that's my vision with this company, then that's my biggest red flag. I automatically don't do it.
Okay.
I want to know that they have like meaningful reasons to build their business. And I want to know that they're mensches. right? Like I can't know that they're successful. You never know. I show me the investor that has 100% success ratio. I won't believe it. Right. And that's okay. It's part of the business. But I do want to. It is important for me to invest in good people. I remember a few years ago. I won't mention names. When I was starting my career, I like before we invest in any company to take the founder out for a meal. I want to see that we can get along well. I want to see how they are when it's not a business setting. And I remember there was a very hot startup in New York that was oversubscribed. I asked someone for an intro and to try and invest in the company. And I got that intro and I took the founder for lunch or an early dinner. And he was talking about how this company can change the world and this and that. And he was already off to an amazing start. And he was so rude to the waitress and treated her so beneath him that to me was a major flag. And then when the check came, I obviously was going to pay because I invited him. But the check landed on the table from the waitress and he looked at me and said, "Thank you." And that kind of entitlement didn't rub me off the right way. But more so how he treated the waitress. Because I believe everyone, no matter how successful you are, if you don't treat people on eye level, it doesn't matter how rich you are. It actually makes you look even worse. And I ended up not backing out. I ended up saying I'm not interested in investing. I didn't give him the exact reason. And he got very upset. He called the founder, then introduced him. "What are you doing? You wasted my time," and this and that, flipped out on him. And for about a year and a half, I kept hearing how well this company's doing, how great it's successful. And I didn't have FOMO because I was like, not my person to invest in. That's not the type of people that I want to invest in because they're not inspiring, right? And then eventually they came to raise their next round and he got multiple term sheets, but he was so kind of greedy. He wanted a higher valuation that eventually everyone backed out. And 6 months later, the company shut down. Wow. So it's that type of humility that I look for. Like you mentioned, Harry from Alma. I knew that he cared about the problem really well, but I also knew that he was an ambitious guy, but I also knew he was very humble, that he would listen. And not listen to me per se, but he would listen to the industry. He would listen to what the industry wants. Mm-hmm. And that's why kind of, Harry, when they started, it's a mental health platform, right. But when that's online and nationwide, but when he started, it was, they wanted to be kind of like a WeWork for therapists. And he built this beautiful place in Midtown and spent most of the seed money for that. And then after a while, just from speaking to his therapist and speaking to patients, he understood that they wanted to be more online, right? And for him, that was a sacrifice because in his mind, he wanted to build these locations nationwide and state by state, which would have been very costly and taken a lot of time. But he was very in love with that concept of a four-wall business. And he thought that's the way to work. But then after he understood that the stigma is changing and people want to be more home instead of walk to therapy or drive to therapy, and the therapist told him that it's acceptable, he accepted that and closed down the business and moved purely to online. But another founder would have been like, no, this is my idea, this is my vision, this is how it should work, and not listen to the industry. And thank God he did that, because almost 6, 7, 8 months later, COVID happened. And if COVID would have happened, no one would have come to his physical space. And COVID, with all the mental stress that everyone got, scaled the business even more. And he was able to go nationwide overnight. Wow. So it's those type of humility of founders that I know are going to listen and assess and take information in and not just be stuck in their own ways. So I try and get to know founders over time and understand if they have that mindset of being humble and willing to learn and accept other people's ideas or feedback and be flexible like that. Right.
Is there like a gut feeling you search for within yourself when meeting somebody to know if they have it or not?
I think there's always a gut feeling. Okay. But the gut feel, but sometimes you also get excited about the idea. Right. Sometimes you also get excited about the numbers. So you have to always just scrap that away and just go with trying to really understand who the people are and why they're doing it and what they've been through in the past that made them resilient and what their opportunity cost is. There's a lot of things that I kind of look into a founder to understand. But the most important is I try not to be an expert in anything. And I claim that. And that's part of my personal growth with Rainfall. At the beginning, when I started, I used to always think that I need to know everything. I used to always walk into a meeting with the founder and I had to do research and know everything about his business or her business and sound like an expert. And then I realized I'm just pretending, right? I wasn't being authentic, you know? And it was stressful all the time. How can I know it? We're generalist investors. How can I be good at knowing everything? And after a while, it kind of softened and I realized that it's okay to not know everything, right? It's okay to not be an expert. The moment you're an expert, you look at reasons why not to do something, or you're so focused on something that you ignore other interesting opportunities that come because you're not looking in that direction. You're looking to be an expert in something. And then you miss out on beautiful things that God can give you when you only focus in one way. And it took me a long time to get comfortable with that. And then when I got comfortable with it, I got really honest with founders and they appreciated it 10 times more. A lot of VCs, they come in, try and tell them they're experts in their business. And yeah, it might work, but really what I saw with our relationship with founders is they just want someone that believes in them. And that gives them that boost of confidence. So we invested in a company in this current portfolio called UbiCloud. And they're kind of, I can't do it justice saying what they're doing, but they're kind of reinventing the cloud so it's more affordable and unbundling it. And I knew the founders before because we were investors in another company of theirs that sold to Microsoft and they did well. And this was their second time around. And we invested in it. And then about 8 months after the round, I was in San Francisco. I was having a beer with one of the founders, with Umar. And I was like, so tell me more about the business. What are you really doing? And he's like, you know what, let me ask you a question, Ron. Why did you invest? And my old Ron would have tried to find something smart to say about what he's building. And my new Ron, my current Ron, said to him, listen, I honestly don't really know what you're doing. That's why I'm asking. I just believe in you. If you all of a sudden told me you wanted to sell ketchup online, I would have probably invested in that also. And he's like, that's why we wanted you guys as investors, because we know you're in our corner because you believe in us. And then he went on to explain and everything, but that was refreshing for him to hear. He told me it's refreshing. We love to hear that. And then I realized over the years that at the end of the day, founders are in the ring on their own. They're building their own companies. They eat, breathe, and sleep it. I think me personally as an investor, I don't know enough to come in and give them advice, but I could be supportive. And I could be there for them in times of need or share resources and give them support, but not more than that. And that's kind of the evolution that I've seen.
So you're not afraid to get vulnerable.
Yeah, not afraid to get vulnerable. And now I'm proud to say that I'm not an expert. I'm excited to be in that. And I think if you can't be a generalist and be an expert in everything. I think it's impossible.
Wow.
But I try and be an expert in backing great founders that are humble, ambitious, have good character, and I know are resilient and aren't going to give up. That's why I try and get better and better at sourcing.
What do you think was the pivotal moment in Rainfall's growth? Because you mentioned in the beginning that when Rainfall started, it was all you reaching out. You had to reach out to everybody, you had to pull connections and favors and everything like that. If you look at Rainfall now, Rainfall is a very well-respected fund. Actually rephrase that. A very well-respected generalist fund.
Thank you. Thank God.
What was the pivotal moment that you think changed that? What are the things you believe that Rainfall did right in order to build up its brand name, that when another, I guess, quote unquote, tier A fund has a deal, they're calling up Ron from Rainfall saying, hey, do you want to participate in this investment?
I don't know if there was a pivotal moment, but I think that we stayed true always to who we are. Mm-hmm. And we, from the beginning, prided ourselves with having good relationships with founders. Right. I think that's always been the cornerstone of of our approach. And I think that's invaluable. And we never got upset with founders. If founders shut down, we still have relationships with them. If they lost money, we still have relationships with them. If they were very successful, we still have relationships with them. And we looked at Rainfall always a way of, like I said, everything is out of our control. Sometimes these investments won't work out, but at the end of the day, it's humans working on something and doing their best. And if it doesn't work out, it's not in their control. Right. And we've always just stayed true to that and tried to, like Vlad from Robinhood started a new AI company, and he had close to 100 investors on his cap table when he went public. But when he started this new AI company, we were one of the handful of investors that he shared it with. And we were fortunate to invest in it. That I think has a lot of potential. But I think relationships has always been the cornerstone. I think a lot of people underestimate how invaluable it is. And we've always treated people as humans and never thought short term, always thought long term. And it's I think that what has always made Rainfall such a rich ecosystem of special people.
So it sounds like you've taken a lot of small, big steps and doing a lot of things right over a consistent, long period of time.
Yeah. I think the pivotal moments were, there are many pivotal moments when a company shut down and we looked at why. And when we realized, we invested, a company did well, but we invested too much, so there wasn't much of a multiple there. But there were just mini learnings all along the way on portfolio construction and reserve capital and recycling, all these different things that we learned from mistakes that ended up being to our benefit, that were pivotal moments that we just learned from.
Right.
So going back to the quote, we learned a lot from our winnings and we learned a lot from our losses, but they weren't moments where we measured our success. It's a journey. At the end of our lives, we measure our success, but everything we learned from. And I think that's what creates a rich life, and anything other than that is a disappointment. So, because people aim I'm going to have this company, it's going to be the major exit, and then it happens, and then what, right? It's how you move forward,
Have you ever had a founder or any of your LPs or people that have experienced that type of financial success, and then they wake up the next morning and they're like, what's it all for?
Not that have expressed to me vulnerably.
Right.
I haven't had that yet. But thank God I've been around people that and founders that I think see the purpose.
Wow.
Yeah.
You built you're a very spiritual person from this conversation, able to see it clearly. And the fund is based upon spiritual ethos. The world right now is in a very, very dark place. We have multiple wars going on, Russia, Ukraine. We have in Israel. May they be safe and protected. We have in America a very big divide right now. How do we spread more goodness and kindness into the world? How do we bring more positivity, more light, to make the world a better place?
That's a good question. I wish I knew. I can only say what I try and do in my part is just try and be good to everyone, try and make anyone feel good about themselves. You never know what someone's going through. We can't take things personally. Sometimes someone could be having a bad day and they'll react somewhat negatively to you. Don't take it personally. Just accept that people are going through things. But I try and do everything I can to make people feel good, do what I can to help others. And hopefully it creates a chain effect where people pay it forward and do good to others as well. But I think we can only set examples for ourselves. We can't preach to others. We can't educate. We can just start by doing, using what we have to do good for people around us. And if it's doing charity or hosting events for charity or giving back to people, I think people see that. And recognize it, and and share what you're doing so others do it as well.
Right. I like that. I really do like that. I think you really represent that. We have to talk about your, what's it called again? You're a celebrity chef on Instagram. You have over 200,000 followers. I think there's a lot to be learned out of that. Like, how'd you scale to over 200,000 followers on Instagram? But like, is this something you want to do like after venture capital? Like, want to become a chef? And what have you learned from taking your craft of making food to the next level? What have you learned from that you apply to other things in your life?
It's interesting. It's a good question. First, I love to cook.
Always?
Always. It's a hobby of mine. I'm a big foodie. I love eating out in restaurants. I love cooking, but I really only cook when I host for people, mostly Shabbat dinners. That happened very organic. It was never a planned thing. I was hosting a dinner, and during that one dinner, I was just taking pictures and recording the food. And then I just, for whatever reason, the next day I was messing around with my phone. I made a video and I put it on Instagram, and my friends loved it. And then from time to time I would do it. And then we moved into an office for Rainfall. And in the backyard, there was a garden. So I was going to cook lunch for the team. And I asked my assistant, why don't you record me while I cook this? And then I edited the video and I posted it, and friends liked it even more. And then the more they liked it, the more I did it. And then I, literally a year from now, yeah, exactly. It was almost a year from now. I did one dish and I edited it, and it went crazy viral. Like, to date, it has about 10 million views.
Wow.
About like 420,000 likes. It just went crazy viral. And then I just kept doing it, and then the viewership just grew more and more. The followers grew more and more, but it was never a planned thing. It was just something I really enjoy doing as a hobby, as my therapy, as my creative outlet. And the more I did it and put it out in the world, the more it resonated with people, because it came from an authentic place.
Right.
I didn't have any goals with it, like of getting X users or getting X followers or getting Y views or anything like that. That was never my plan. I just enjoyed it and put it out for my friends to see. And I think people smell that. They feel it. They feel when something comes from an authentic place. They feel when someone really cares about something and is passionate about something, and it attracts them. Right? And I think that I sometimes look at that, like, founders should have that view also. Like, am I doing this because I'm really passionate about it, or I'm doing it because it's going to make me $10 million, right? And I think the ones that are really passionate about what they do, it brings the best out of them. Even if it's hard, they keep doing it because they get excited about it. And that's what brings the best entrepreneurship. So that's kind of like how it happened. It was very organic, but very nothing planned. I do get offers from like brands to do collaborations and sponsorships and things like that. But I kind of stay away from that because it's just going to take away from my passion of it being a hobby. And sometimes it's okay for something to just be a hobby. Not everything has to turn out to be a business. Right. What the future will bring, I don't know. But I do want to keep doing it just because I enjoy it. You know. And by the way, I tell founders that also. I'm like, have hobbies. And I tell it to the Rainfall team, have hobbies, disconnect. You don't have to work all the time. Be with your families, do your hobbies. And you'll see when you come back to work, you'll be even more motivated and have more clarity and have better ideas with your work. But everyone thinks that you're not allowed to have hobbies. You're not allowed to take a day off and you not work. But I preach that.
What other hobbies do you have?
I like to, that's my main one, but I like to walk a lot, exercise a lot. I love hikes. Those are the main ones.
Wow. Yeah. By the way, I'm like, super curious to see, because the way the pace of how you've gotten to 200,000, you're technically almost on a pace to get to 500,000 way quicker. Like, and then we'll see what happens from over there, because that's at the end of the day, there's a lot of influence for a lot of people. So,
by the way, I don't think it was. I don't think it was a coincidence that it happened. I take a responsibility of it now, meaning I think that's a lot of followers, and I wasn't seeking it. It means God gave me some responsibility to do something with it, because it's a platform now where you can share and many people can listen to you. And I see a lot of people that I personally know or don't know that have hundreds of millions of followers, and they spread sometimes the wrong message. It's very dangerous. But they don't realize the responsibility of how many followers that is and the effect that they can have on the world. But I don't think it was a coincidence in the sense that when I posted that video that went viral and started getting me all those users, it was October 6th, right? And it started blowing up. And then the next day I woke up and it was October 7th, and I was on my phone and I seen all this Instagram and things that I woke up with it. But at the same time, I got the news from Israel of October 7th, what was happening for my family and friends. And then I was like, wait a second, if clearly God has given me a platform now, this must be the reason that I can do good with it and inspire people. But if I would have waited to post the video another day or two, I wouldn't have posted it out of sensitivity to what happened with Israel. And I was debating that Friday if I should post it or not. And I posted it. Thank God I did. But if I didn't, and the next day, October 7th would have happened, I wouldn't have posted anything for a long time, right? So there must have been a reason the day before October 7th happened, God gave me this kind of growth so I could do good things with it.
Wow.
And so we'll see where it goes. But so far, the food stuff, I'm inspired by it because it touches, people write me beautiful things that they love seeing, that it's therapeutic for them. It makes them feel good. It reminds them of childhood and just makes them cook or do all these different things. And from time to time, I try and use it to spread a good message about doing something good and meaningful in the world. And as it grows, I think that's my responsibility.
Right. That was going to be my next question. Like, you have a real responsibility now.
It feels so, yeah.
So how are you going to make sure you use it for good?
I don't know yet, but it's my plan to. I know that's the reason.
How has October 7th impacted you?
I think that it's directly, I've been as much as I can helping families that the families that have members that are being held hostage. If I was able to interact with them, I've been trying to donate to soldiers and families that got affected as much as I could. Indirectly, it's affected me because, it's sad to see that what's happening to all these families, the hostages, the soldiers, the families of the soldiers, and that we're fighting a war and seeing all this anti-Semitism in the world is very, very sad. At the same time, it's making me feel that now is our moment even more to kind of shine and show what Judaism is all about. That in dark moments, we see that there's that we'll get out of it and we'll see brighter days, but that we have to use what Judaism gave us to make sure that people know that we're here to make the world a better place, that we have a responsibility here to do good. And if we stick to who we are as Jewish people and do good, then people will see that, right? And we have a responsibility to do that. That's why we have so many acts of charity that the Torah teaches us, right. So it taught me to double down on standing more for the Jewish values and doing good and acts of charity, so people see that that's what we're about.
Wow. It's so, like, I mentioned this already twice, but I'm mentioning it again because the more I hear from you, the more inspired I get. How you and Rainfall are one. In the sense that what you represent as an individual person, of what you mentioned, of goodness and kindness, of charity, of spirituality, of growth, is everything you see in Rainfall too. And it's also amazing to see how you attribute so much to the one above, and also to luck. The fact that, like, you could have had a totally different career. You could have ended up somewhere totally nothing to do. Like you said, you had no interest in venture capital. You didn't know anybody in there. Hence, you didn't even know the language of venture capital. Everything you mentioned before, like recycling, doubling down, or whatever, everything, distribution. I'm sure at 27 years old, I don't know if you knew any of this or not.
Yeah, I knew nothing. And by the way, that's great.
Yeah.
Knowing nothing was probably what made it do well.
All you had was your self-confidence.
Yeah, in a sense. Yeah. But I'll tell you, it's something I struggle with also, but I think a lot of people struggle with is knowing a lot isn't necessarily good. Being too smart isn't necessarily too good, because then you avoid doing things. You avoid taking, going with the flow with things,
right?
Because you find reasons why not to do something. You find reasons why something shouldn't work out, but then you miss the opportunity, right? And so sometimes less information, less knowledge, is just jumping into things. That's when you'll discover what you need to do, right? And going into Rainfall and knowing nothing was great, because we learned along the way, and that's what made us generalists. That's what made us contrarian. That's what made us be okay not being experts in things, because we discovered the best companies by accident of investing in quality people. And then when they become hot companies, we weren't busy trying to fight to get into them or get into that trend. So I think that going into things and just not fantasizing, not putting theses or theories in place, helps you really live life. And then you explore, then you see where it takes you.
But did you ever feel like an imposter?
Always. Always. Yeah. But an imposter in what sense are you saying?
Like, you could take it in any way you want to take it. There's so many ways have to translate it. So, like, you don't belong here. You, like you mentioned before, in the beginning, you try to fake it. You try to fake you're an expert, but now you have no problem saying, I don't know.
Yeah, I have felt that. But I felt that, and looking back, it was probably not true. It was more voices in my head. And sometimes we have to ignore the voices in our head. Just because we think something doesn't mean it's right. And if it was the case, then great. If, at the end of the day, if someone doesn't want to be in business with me or with us, then it's okay. We're not meant to work together, and it'll lead me to something else I'm supposed to be in. So for a long while, it was hard to get into the good, hot deals. And even today, it's hard. But I'm happy that happened, because it led us to what we were supposed to be in. And it led us to great opportunities that became something when it wasn't so clear. And we have great relationships with the founders because we believed in them first. Right. And a lot of investors have a thesis, and they raise a fund and tell investors, this is what we're going to invest in. Right? And they're smart to do that. It's the right thing to do. But then they go out in the market looking for that. And what does that do? It automatically puts founders second. Right. What I was lucky with, thank God, with Rainfall is when Yitzhak came and said, with his family office, and said, here's money, go invest. I didn't have to pitch him on anything. Only years later, I realized why that was so amazing. I always knew it was great. Someone come and here's money, start a fund is an incredible thing to happen. But thank God, the more incredible thing was it made me be a generalist, and I just went out and told people, hey, I believe in you and I'm investing in you, versus, hey, I'm looking for the next big fintech company and now you're second. And that resonates with founders. So looking back, it all came into place in a beautiful way. And today, that's what kind of it led to this today that's so special.
Right. It's incredible, because you didn't have to deal with the challenges a lot of emerging managers had to deal with in the beginning when it comes to raising their first fund.
Yeah.
Like, someone literally came and said, here's money, go ahead and invest it. And, obviously someone could do that and it cannot work out. You did it, you made sure it worked out, and you built this incredible fund, and you've gone on that thing you've been on this trail ever since. That's amazing.
Yeah. Thank God.
That's a real blessing.
Yeah. Listen, not without its challenges. Everything was nothing was easy, but we fought through, and we were patient, and we learned a lot. And now we're on our fourth fund, and we have 30 plus investors, all family offices, high net worth individuals that have just been in our network and are all incredible people. And it all started in one place and led to where it is today. But we're always learning. It doesn't stop.
Right.
I know more than I knew in the past, but I'm sure in a year or 2 years, I'll look back and be like, I knew nothing today. I'm sure, Wow.
How do you measure your growth?
I That's a good question. How do I measure my growth? I don't really measure my growth, to be honest. I try and see that I try and see what kind of growth are you talking about?
Personal growth, professional growth. Like when you go into the gym, for example, you mentioned like you like to exercise. You like exercising. So whatever goal you set for yourself, whatever it may be, losing weight or building mass or whatever it may be, you're able to see that directly. Like, are you heading up or are you heading down? But in your personal stuff, personal levels, like for example, you mentioned before, you have voices in your head. Do you still have voices in your head? Do you still deal with that self-doubt? And what do you do on those days when you have self-doubt? Professionally, are you getting into the right deals? Are you able to be there for the founders more? From a vulnerability perspective or from a place of knowledge? So these are all ways. Like, how do you measure them?
Look, it's hard for me. It's hard for me to measure myself. I don't really measure myself, so I can't answer that accurately. I think also at the end of your life, you should measure yourself.
Right.
We're always growing and new challenges come and we just have to adapt to those new challenges. And every time I think, okay, I've made it, or now I'm calm, something else, a new opportunity comes, and then it's stressful in a different way. So I can't say I have everything figured out. I do think that, as I grow, I get new tools of how to think and how to have more faith in God and have more, a stronger conviction that everything is going to work out no matter what. I constantly have to remind myself that nothing is ever a given. Right? So I am surprised though, as new challenges come, I'm able to adapt to them quicker and be less stressed. But it's I actively work on myself often. I think that if it's spiritually or with a therapist or working out or doing my hobbies just so I can have more clarity and take life easier, it's a constant thing. So it's hard for me to measure myself today.
I want you to imagine that you're doing a recording for your Instagram video. And you know that this video you're putting out, right now to date, your highest video has 10 million. But I want you to think that like this video is going to hit 1 billion people. 1 billion people. What message would you want to give out to this 1 billion people that are going to watch that video from Ron?
Do good things with what you're given. Because every time before I post a video or before I cook something, I'm always nervous to do it. I don't know if it'll be good. I have that self-doubt often. And then after I make it, I'm like, wow, I just did that? And then I know it's not me. I was given the gift of being good at cooking, or being good at editing. And I was given that. So with that, I want to be able to give back. The same thing with investing. Every investment, I have doubts before. But then after we do it and it's a success, it feels great. Wow, something in me made me do that investment and it came out good. And now it's out of my control because going in, I had self-doubt in that deal or self-doubt in cooking that dish or putting that video out. So going in self-doubt means that it's not in my control. I was given those gifts. So it means that with the outcome of it, I have to do something good back in return. So that's what I would say.
I love that.
I think, we're given good skills. We should give back with it. And every single individual, doesn't matter how successful they are, everyone is given unique skills of their own, and they have to use it to do good.
Yeah. Everyone has their unique mission, and they're the only person that can accomplish that mission in the world.
Definitely.
Ron, I want to thank you.
Thank you. This was great.
This has been amazing. I've learned a tremendous amount. So many different things I've learned. I really also view you. I mean, I've always had high esteem for you, as a dear friend, as someone that constantly grows. But now hearing your story, there's so many things that I could apply to my own life. Hearing from your experience, not to copy, but in order to learn from your story, to apply it to my own life. And I'm able to see quite a few things. And it's incredible to see how you attributed so much to luck, which in my case, I'm going to, translate personally for me, which means trust in God. and how much trust you have in God, how much trust you have that you know, like you said, you're only in the input business, and you are where you're supposed to be. Everything is divine providence, nothing by chance. And that's one of the biggest lessons I've taken from this. And the other thing was, like you said, end of the day, no matter what, it doesn't make a difference if you're a billionaire sitting on your yacht somewhere, or you're a person that's working, like a dead-end job, or you're someone that's looking for your next thing in life. Everyone brushes their teeth in the morning. Everyone breathes the same air. Treat everyone with respect. Because at the end of the day, we're all here for a certain amount of time to make this world a better place. And that's our mission.
100%. 100%. I'll say one last thing, doing things and trusting in God is a hard thing to do. Right? It's because it's intangible. You can't see God. You can't touch God. You can't talk to God. You can talk. You're not going to hear anything back. Right? But my logic always tells me that what I'm given is from God. Right? And I know that. And then I use that for good. And then if you have a partnership like that with God, he's always going to give back and take care of you. I really believe that. So it's hard when you're doing to see that God is with you. But when you receive back and you know it and that it's from God, that makes your life even richer and richer.
Wow. I love that.
Thank God. Beautiful. Thank you. It was great.
Wow. Can I take a selfie over here? Do it.